No way, Jose.
The following footage proves beyond any doubt that the tanks intentionally set the house on fire. It proves that the Branch Davidians were murdered. You can see that this tank has a gas jet on the front that shoots fire. You can also see the fire quite plainly. The tank goes into the house twice, and each time as it backs out, the fire at the gas jet is plainly visible.
We must all do more to recognize and look for the early warning signals that deeply troubled young people send.
Hey guys, it's Jose Galison. You're watching No Way Jose. You can find me on the No Way Jose YouTube channel, all the major audio podcatchers, and Rumble as well. Today my guests are my friend Buddy and Will. We're doing Dune II with the boys. For those who have been following the show for a long time know, back when the first Dune came out, I did a panel with Will, and then I actually had Pat McFarlane and then Magnus Pinvidia. I didn't get the other two guys this time for different reasons, but I got Will and I got Buddy. We're going to talk about Dune 2 and just kind of what all goes into that. I watched it about a month ago or so. It was dope. I know we're a little bit late on this, but I don't really care. I just kind of cover what I want to talk about in this show. Wasn't really trying to hit the algo at that perfect time or anything. Just covering stuff I want to talk about. And I know it's a little bit out of the realm of what I usually cover on this show, but I think on my last Already Dead, I mentioned how it's kind of like I would implore for those who do like parapolitics, who like political theory, the type of stuff I typically cover on the show. I really think Dune, like especially if you like fiction as well or sci-fi or whatever, like Dune is the perfect thing for that. Like it really is. It's so heavy on, political theory and parapolitics. So yeah, I would highly recommend that for you guys, and we'll kind of get into that today. I do want to remind you guys how this works. My patrons get this content early, and that's at patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. The lowest level is $2 for these No Way Jose episodes. Obviously not for my Already Dead, which is a live stream series I do. That doesn't apply there. But for my No Way Jose, my normal No Way Jose episodes, you guys get this roughly about a week early. And that, like I said, that's a $2 level to just get it early. There's multiple levels, and my highest level is my sponsors. I'll read them off every episode. I have at Tower Gang Toad, my co-host on Tower Gang. Then I also have at Abrogate D's and Kevin B. Clark, a full-time guitarist and private music teacher in the New York area. Then I have at ZOVERACK, then at _Infinite Zeal, then Jacob Daniel of the Biblical Anarchy podcast. You can follow him on Twitter at Biblical Anarchy. Then I have Tim Tuttle at Jolly on Klebold. Then I have a new one who's actually one of my guests today, old Will Bell here. For Rabbit Eye Wine. He sent me a bunch of these. This shit is dope. I highly recommend it. But all right, let's get our fellas in here. Let's get to it. Let's start talking about Dune. What's up, buddy? What's up, Will?
Hey, man.
Hey, just a warning for those out there. Will's audio's dog shit, but it is what it is. This is chilling with the homies. So just letting you know. I don't want to hear any fucking complaints about it because I don't fucking care. But here we are. I think, Will, you're the one who watched Dune the most recently, so you probably have the best recollection of it. I only watched it the once. It was dope. I guess I kind of want to start off with, I think we'll probably do a little bit of non-spoiler sort of review. Let's start out with you, Will. I want to just kind of get your general impressions, just kind of what you thought overall of the movie, and just kind of, like I said, non-spoiler. We'll get into spoilers later. I figured probably 10 to 20 minutes or so. We'll kind of cover maybe kind of just general thoughts, maybe some of the different actors, kind of like our thoughts on their portrayals of the different characters, keep it non-spoilerly for a while. I mean, I don't know what the fuck anyone's watching a Dune 2, recap if you haven't, checked it out. But just to be safe, and it's also like a month later or so, we'll do a little bit of non-spoilery for the beginning. So I guess, Will, what were your impressions of the movie overall without really getting too deep into spoilers? Go.
Right on, right on. No spoilers. So, I mean, I'm a book nerd from all the original Herbert stuff. I really going in. I wasn't nervous. The first one was I would call it a classic. The second one, we're just gonna sit here and suck this movie's dick the whole time.
Oh, yeah, for real.
So it was a fucking masterpiece. Like, like, there are things I would nitpick being a book bitch or whatever, but it couldn't have been better. Lord of the Rings level adaptation. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'd agree with that entire. I guess it depends. I mean, maybe I'm being a little bit nitpicky on the Lord of the Rings adaptation because I feel like Lord of the Rings was far more faithful to the adaptation than this has been so far. And I'm not saying that it's necessarily a negative. And we'll get into that later, probably maybe more spoiler. But if you've read the Dune books, I've thought from the beginning when this started, after reading the Dune books, I was kind of like, I don't know how they're going to pull this off because it's such a dense concept, Dune, and there's also a lot of it, a lot is like exposition within like a Paul's head. Like, so the idea of then translating that to film, it's like, how do you do that? And I think, so I think they had to make a few different creative choices that departed from the books that in order to accommodate that, which totally makes sense, and we'll get into that. But I guess, I don't know, Will, do you have any other thoughts, non-spoiler, just overall impressions of the movie before I pass it off to Buddy?
I mean, my main thing is just I would and just sucking the movie's dick. It's great, really. I can't say nothing more than just the music behind everything was great. The scenery was great. They laid out everything. All the cuts that they had to cut it down. Like you say, it was such a dense book. There's so many things that they didn't touch on. And I was watching it with my fiance, and just like I was sitting there like explaining like dorky dudes do to their women, like everything down. And she's like, if you were not here to explain this, I would have lost interest because it was so complex. And it's complex on top of just being trimmed down. Such a small amount of the information that you're seeing there. Like us as nerds, we can see the characters and be like, oh, this is the context to this guy.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It was great. I don't think you could be any more like in depth than that movie already was. It's 5 hours over the book already.
Oh my God, yeah. You did bring up a good point there. I do think there is something to, and I don't know. I mean, I only have my wife and my two daughters to really. My youngest daughter has much more of like a dude brain, is into this kind of shit, and she obviously didn't read the books. And I got her to watch the first one with me, and then I brought her to the movies to watch the second one. I got my wife and my oldest daughter to watch the first one with me at home. They were like, holy shit, this is fucking boring. The youngest one liked it. And so I was able to get her to go to the second one. My wife and my oldest daughter were not interested in going to go see the movie with me, so I only brought my youngest. But I do think there is something to that. I mean, I have a very small sample size, and I'm also dealing with women who aren't really into these type of things. So I mean, maybe it's not the best, but I did kind of like reflect on this and like, how would I perceive this movie or these two movies really if I never read the books? And I think there might be something to that. And I don't know if it's necessarily a negative or a positive, because I like, just for those, I didn't end up reading the books until the first movie came out, but I didn't watch the first movie until I read the first book. Because like when the movie came out, I kind of like was like, this seems interesting. I watched a few like YouTube videos or whatever. It's kind of like, oh, sounds like something I'd be into. So I watched or read the first book, and then I don't know if I read the other books before I watched it or not. But either way, I at least read the first one before I went to the movie, and then I read like all of them, at least all of Frank's stuff. I didn't read all the other bullshit. I read all of Frank's books. And yeah, I mean, but the kind of the point I'm driving at here is, I feel like these movies were made for the book nerds, because I just don't know how well these are being received by people that don't have any sort of book interest or at least proclivity to these specific type of things. Because there was so much stuff that I reflected on later, and I was like, if I didn't read the book, this wouldn't make sense to me, or maybe it would make sense, but I wouldn't have the further context to like really make this make sense. I guess not necessarily make sense, but to flesh it out, I guess, essentially. But either way, so my point being is I do think there might be something to that. So I know for your book nerds out there, that's a positive. But if you're not a book nerd, maybe it's not for you. I mean, maybe try out the first movie and go from there. I will say it's kind of bizarre because I feel like the second movie is far more of a movie for the non-book nerds than the first one, because the first one's a little bit more kind of honestly kind of like drawn out and more boring in a sense. Although if you're a book nerd, though, you understand the concepts going on, so you're interested. But if you're not, I could see you being like, this is dragging on. The second one, it gets fucking wild, and you're like, this is dope. But all right, I'm gonna pass it off to Buddy. What were your just kind of general non-spoiler thoughts, just overall, of Dune 2?
Yeah, I'm with Will. Besides, just praise. I appreciate a lot of the color schemes in it. Like, there was a lot of shots that it might have been like when it was supposed to be like sunset there, in the Seiches, but the color scheme looked like, Jose, you're probably close to my age. I mean, it looked like an old video film reel, like brought to you by Technicolor. Like, I mean, it looked just like the 80s Dune, just like the kind of brownish orange tone. It further proves how just dumb the Constitution is. That, like, listen, man, both Herbert and freaking Hans Zimmer doing the score, like, we're not, all men aren't created equal. Like, it's like the brain to come up with the Dune saga. Like, a dude wrote that, just plots within plots within plots, all centered around a drug. Yeah. In order to experience the universe, you got to do drugs like that. That's wild. Yeah. The music was fantastic, and then the way that I want to say, like, so in the first movie, I think the title track is "Leaving Caladan." It's when Paul, right after they got their orders to leave, and he's like walking on the rocky shore, and the ship's coming from underneath the water, and the guitars are all. In the second movie, you have that melody mixed with the crazy Middle Eastern sounding lady theme, and they come together. It's very Paul Atreides, Muad'Dib. It's together. It was great. I am the person that's not the book nerd. I
can't read the books.
Like, no, I've audio listened to them. Like, I've audio booked them.
I did. To be honest, I haven't actually physically read them. I did an audiobook, but it's just like I always feel gay having a caveat like, oh, it's an audiobook. Like, but I got the information. So and I do think I will say, for those out there, physical reading is superior, but I also think they're different. I think you get different things out of the audio listening. I will say the audiobooks on Audible, at least the first one, amazing narration, multiple different voices, whereas most audiobooks, that's not the case. But go on.
Yeah. Well, and also, like, I can't, like, I mean, I can read, like, I understand how reading and phonics works, but like, I'll talk to Will, and he's like, hey man, don't you just, like, when it's raining and you can't work outside, you just stay inside and get lost in a good book, I'm like, no man, I can't read, especially with Dune. I mean, that's the worst. But it's hard for me to read and understand what's going on while also picturing it in my mind at the same time. Like, I'm too stupid to do that. I can't do it. I can't do it. So, like, yeah, the second movie was, I don't want to say it was a completely different movie, but I felt like you could even watch the second movie without even watching the first movie if you just kind of watch one of the 100 YouTube clips recapping the first movie, because all of the main theme is just like this dude's rise into power. Is he going to accept the power, not the power? You really don't need to know all like hey, babe, check this out. He can actually see all these futures because he's a mentat. He's been trained to burn. Like, I mean, you just hear the thigh slam shut when you start telling your wife that or whatever. So, but it's still like, I took my two boys to the second one and they were like, yeah, the sandworms were great. Like, and they were.
Yeah.
But it was enough. But I mean, man, music is so important. Like you realize like how much it moves. I loved, especially compared to like the 1980s Dune, because growing up, that's how I was aware of Dune. Apparently, I'm discovering that my mom was kind of a nerd, and she like got us all into both
Apparently,
Star
I'm discovering
Wars.
you think I'm way older than I am.
But
You said we're the same age. You're talking about the 80s. I was born in 91.
oh shit, God.
Yeah, I know I have a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old, but I got to fucking real young. So
Oh,
I'm 32.
oh, that's a big jump. I'm 39. No, but like, so like my mom got us hooked on both Star Wars and what we call now Muslim Star Wars, Dune.
Yeah.
But like just comparing everything to that Dune, I guess because everyone is, because that's all you can do. But like this movie, every person looks and feels like who they're supposed to look and feel like. Like there's a good separation with the wardrobe and the acting. And like if you just look at the old Dune, it just looks like a play that they filmed. Like you don't know who, like everyone's
Dude,
just standing
I
around.
tried
Like,
to watch it, and because
they're
I'd never
fighting like
seen it.
Roblox characters when they have their shields. Like
Yeah, I tried to watch it. I got like a third of the way through, and I was like, I can't fucking do this. But go
no
on.
one,
Sorry.
but no, yeah, like no one has any personality in it. They're all like just stoic, and I'm just like, how can this be good? And that's
80s
what I
Dune
liked
has
about
its
this
place.
one. What
Couldn't
was
hear you, Will.
80s Dune has its place now. The one thing in the movie that I really like, soundtrack wise, that I did miss is in the 80s Dune when Paul does ride the sandworm. Spoilers. The
For an
guitar
80s movie.
riff. The fucking guitar riff, dude, on that is it's everything in the 80s and sci-fi put together. Now, obviously the new one is far superior. It's a cinematic masterpiece. Like the Paul getting on the sandworm and shit, it shows everything. It's great. The music, it hits differently. But there was a little bit of me that wanted a little bit of that 80s Dune guitar. That it's a beautiful scene in a very, admittedly, very shitty movie.
I mean, that would be a cool callback. I mean, I didn't finish that movie, and I don't know what riff you're talking about, but it's like that would be a cool callback if they, especially like when he mounted the worm. I don't remember what score they used when he mounted the worm in this. Spoiler. Although I feel like the first movie. If you watch the first movie, I feel like it's very much foreshadowed. So like no shit. But actually, you know what? Yeah, actually, now that I think about it, that was a little bit spoilerish because they only very, 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 very subtly foreshadowed it in the first movie. In the first movie, there was that scene with the black chick. I forget her name. It's heavily alluded to. It's like Chaney's mom. In the original, in the books, that was a dude, and it's alluded to that's Chaney's dad. Yeah, it's like the science person or whatever. I forget what the fuck their title is. But that's that moment.
planetary ecologist?
There you go.
Dr.
And then,
Kynes.
oh shit! All right. You talking shit about yourself a minute ago, but not being a book nerd. You're recollecting this stuff. But yeah, no. That there was that like scene near the end where she fucking like set up the thumper, had her little like fucking blade things out, and then got shot. So you didn't ever actually see her do it, but it's like heavily alluding to she's about to. So now that I think about it, yeah, unless you knew about riding worms or stuff, you wouldn't have picked that up. But I don't know. Let's be real. It's Dune. You would have fucking got that. But sorry, go on.
They do have the one little scene right there at the end where they're like, in Dune 1, so we can spoil this. right now, right?
Yeah.
But like there is like a Fremen riding by on a sandworm. It's a weird scene. That's one that I was like, I wish they would have saved that for Paul or whatever, or just maybe the second one. But there is a scene in number one where it's just like, oh yeah, we ride sandworms. You'll
Desert power.
you can miss it. It's a weird one. I just
Yeah.
rewatched both of them. So
Well, all right. I don't know if either of you have any thoughts on non-spoiler, like kind of just generalizations. I figured maybe if you do, go ahead and pipe in now. But otherwise, I think maybe we'll kind of get into the different actors. I feel like maybe a good spot to start out with Timothy Chalamet, the guy who played Paul Atreides. Like just thoughts on his portrayal. I guess I'll just kind of pipe in here. I do think. I will say in the first one, I was neither impressed nor unimpressed with him. I was just kind of like, okay. I mean, I was kind of like, this is supposed to be the hero of the story. He's kind of a scrawny little dude. He felt like a boy. But I will say in this movie, I felt like he really became a man and he became Paul Atreides. And he really was just like, oh, fuck. Like, okay, I get what Villeneuve was thinking with this dude because this dude, he's got it. Like, I don't know if maybe it was just he aged up too, also as a man in between the two movies, and so he just kind of was able to just like be more fucking manly. Although, I mean, don't get me wrong, he still kind of has that like kind of boyishness to him, but just something about this movie is just like, all right, this dude's a fucking badass. Like you just really like I don't know, just something about him. I guess all right. Will, I don't know if you have any thoughts on just the portrayal, Timothy Chalamet's portrayal as Paul specifically. I don't know if you want to point out the difference between this movie and Dune One, but just thoughts on his portrayal.
absolutely. Like, okay, are we in spoil away territory? What we doing?
I figured we keep it non-spoiler for this, but fuck it, whatever. We're spoiler now. Go for it.
We spoiler now? All right.
Yeah.
Fuck you nerds. Watch the movie and then come back to this. All right. When Paul fucking walks up in there in the stitch and he just like throws out his big Quiznos heart attack dick. Bam. And he's just like, none of you motherfuckers can take me. I'm the man. I'm Muad'Dib. He stands up there. I'm the Duke. And you got like old Josh Brolin tearing up and all that fucking scene where he's just like, I'm the baddest motherfucker y'all ever seen. That was where I was like, he's Paul Atreides. And it crushed it. The rest of the movie is just metal after that. It's all done. He killed it. Just like you were saying. Number one, he's like a little boy almost, seems like, and then he aged up. I don't know if that was literally just what happened or it's movie magic that they knew what they were doing. Because the book, he's a little boy getting thrown into this and he has to grow up and conquer his father's killers and all that kind of jazz.
Yeah.
Very important.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, buddy.
There, with Timothy especially, there's something very. I'm sure there's some evolutionary biologist that can tell us, but he kind of is the perfect. Besides being like a black-haired young person with blue eyes, like they talk about in the book, he has a very like all like the 60s rock stars, like he has that. Like they look like they could be larger than life, but they're tiny. They're tiny, tiny people. Like every rock star that you can think of is a tiny person. And I don't want to say like he's kind of fey.
Dude, Phil Labonte, just so you guys know, because I went to I've been on RL twice. He's like maybe an inch or two taller than me, and for those who aren't aware, if you watch my show, you know I'm a short dude. I mean, yeah, I'm like 200 pounds, which is so I'm a thick boy. I'm like kind of a muscular dad bod, but I'm 5'5". Like I'm short as fuck. And yeah, so like yes, it is weird when you do meet like your. I guess I say idols. I wouldn't say Phil is an idol, but he definitely was somebody like I very much was into, like the Fall Ideals, All That Remains, and generally speaking, especially growing up as a kid. So it was weird to see him in person and be like, yo, I expect you to be way fucking bigger. And not like a bad thing. He's a cool guy. I'm not like shitting on him, but
Yeah.
It is weird when you meet people and you're like, you expect, like, you know, especially like actors or you know, stars, you know, music, rock stars, whatever, and you expect them to be tall and they're like, an inch or two taller than you or shorter than you, I guess, for a normal sized person. But go on, sorry, buddy.
Yeah. So I mean, there's something about like in any cult leader, like they always end up being like we little people.
Yeah.
So he was perfect for that. I thought. I mean, they nailed it for everyone. Zendaya, I appreciated it. That got my oldest. He's 12, almost 13. That got him interested in it.
Don't jump forward. We'll get to Zendaya in a minute. I have
Well, I'm
thoughts on
just talking
that,
about the character, like the casting.
yeah. Yeah. Well,
Um,
we're talking about specifically Paul right here,
oh,
Timothée Chalamet.
well.
So
Oh, all right. Sorry. Yeah, I wasn't aware of any. Like, by the time even he did the first Dune, like he was somebody, but like not anything for me.
mhm.
But he earned it. Like Will
Yeah.
said, when he comes in there and he just has a big dick strut as he goes in there, and he's got enough meat to just make some noise when it hits the table, and he just starts preaching, and it's I was like, oh oh dear, like ooh. Yeah. No, he killed it. He got my respect for sure, which is wild because I saw Dune, and then like the next day my kids were laying in bed with my wife watching Wonka,
Yeah.
and he's just so not like I just saw him.
I fell asleep during Wonka. I couldn't give two shits.
Well, he was just like, "Hello, kid." I was like, oh. So yeah, thumbs up.
Yeah. All right. Well, you kind of jumped forward a little bit there. Let's get into Zendaya. I'm not necessarily. I guess I would characterize her portrayal in both movies in kind of a similar sense as how I thought of Paul in the first movie. I was neither impressed nor unimpressed. I just didn't really care, and I really feel like this version of Cheney, is not the same version at all we got from the books. Very, very different. But as I kind of alluded to earlier, we're talking about kind of like exposition and like the idea. Actually, I don't know if that was in pre-chat or if it was in the show or not, but the idea that this book is very dense and there's a lot of stuff going on in Paul's head. So I think what they did is they took Cheney and they made her that. They made her us. They made her the person that's supposed to be the exposition, the one who's kind of like allowing us to kind of understand what's going on within his head. For those who aren't aware, in the book, she is a ride or die bitch. Like, she is not. Like, once again, we're in spoiler territory. She basically ditches him at the end of this movie because he runs off with Princess Irulan. Well, he doesn't even run off. He goes to marry Princess Irulan to secure the throne. And yeah, and then Cheney gets all ass mad about it and fucking runs off. In the movies, not in the movies, but in the books, not an issue whatsoever. She's just like, okay, cool, I'm with you. That's all I care about. So I do think there is something lost there, because I do think there is something to that. It's almost like they felt like they had to give her more agency, as if it was a bad thing, like as if that was like a bad thing about Cheney. Like, I don't know if it's like maybe like a feminism thing. Maybe that's one way that can be interpreted, as if they want her to give her more agency of her own or something. Although I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for her to be a ride or die. I think you can still have a very powerful character and have that. Because in the books, she was a very powerful character while still being a ride or die bitch. Like she wasn't like anyone's bitch. Like, she wasn't like an NPC type character or whatever. She was very much like a badass bitch. But she was all about Paul. She was never going to leave his side, nothing. So it was a departure in the movie with that. I will say Zendaya's portrayal just kind of, I don't know if I'd say bores me, but it definitely didn't like interest me. Like, it was just kind of like, okay. But I do think, after thinking over, I do think the role she plays kind of makes sense, because there is so much to be said with this book. There, like, once again, I don't remember if we said this in pre-chat or not. There's so much of the book is like literally just monologues that are within Paul's head. And so it's like, how the fuck is an audience in a visual format supposed to understand this? And I think Cheney is that. I think for example, at the end with her running off and her all being concerned about him like exploiting her people, I do think that was to kind of give you the portrayal that maybe Paul is the villain. And I think in the next movie we'll get more of an understanding from her coming back that he's more of a victim of his own destiny, and really he just has, in a certain sense, Paul really has no agency in a sense, because he is trying to fight this whole concept of like the jihad. Like he doesn't want the jihad, and it's like kind of almost foisted upon him. Like he's almost given two paths, essentially: do nothing, everyone on this fucking planet dies, or you do something, you rise to power, and this jihad occurs because of this religious thing that goes along with you that you basically can't avoid. He tries to accumulate as much power as possible so that he can somehow prevent this from happening, but it's just unavoidable. No matter what he does, it still happens either way. So I do think there's something to that. I guess I'll pass it off to Will and his thoughts on Cheney and her portrayal by what's her name, Zendaya, and just kind of generally speaking, maybe just kind of like your thoughts on how it departed from the portrayal of Cheney in the books.
Right on. Yeah. You kind of summarized it very well there, of just like they had to change her character to kind of like give us this person that was kind of giving the secular liberals a voice and like, hey, what's all this religious shit going on here, while still allowing the movie to really ramp up the whole fundamentalist like aspect of what's going on. Like, I don't know how well it would have played with the audiences if, like, you know, she was a ride or die bitch, like a proper Fremen woman, like from the books. But I don't know. At first I was kind of sitting there sour about it, but the more like I've sat there and all the changes from the movie, I'm understanding them a little bit better, like more kind of like going like, you know, you would have had to do that, or they wouldn't have been able to give us that insight into the, like, actually Paul is the villain here, like that leaving scene, like spoilers for the next movie, like there's really important parts why Zendaya's gotta come back, like like to prolong the series. But it does add, I don't know, it maybe adds a little depth to her character, because she's not really like a central point in like what Dune is trying to say. She's more like there as just like a matriarchal figure. Yeah, support character for Paul. And this kind of makes her a support character for Paul and for the audience to kind of play off of, make this movie.
Real quick, I did want to make a point though. I feel like I think, especially in modern day, a lot of people would see that as weak, but I do think there is something to be said that, like, her being a support character to the literal most powerful person in the universe is not like in any way shitting on her. Like, she's literally, like, in a sense, the second most powerful person in the universe. So, but sorry, go on.
No, for sure. You know, that's something really cool that the Dune universe does, that, like, I think a lot of, like, female superheroes, not that women can't kick ass and that kind of stuff, but like female superhero movies or sci-fi thing, they always try to make women cooler by making them beat up dudes or be more physically badass. But the Dune, like, lore, like the Bene Gesserit take, like, not to sound like a chauvinist or anything, but like what women's superpowers are, like sexually manipulating men and making human beings with their bodies. Like, it takes their superpowers and brings it to the level of, like, you know, like superheroes. Like, these women throughout these books are like controlling the destiny of all these powerful lords of planets, and even Paul to a certain degree. Like, he is a product of Jessica more than he is of his father or for anybody. It's like his mother is going there. And then Chani is a powerful character to just be this desert woman that sweeps this dude off his feet and he stays loyal to her. In the books, like Princess Eloria?
Irulan.
He's a Bene Gesserit too, and like she's basically a how do you say, like a lady cook, like She's like, he cucks her. He's like, yeah, she's my political wife, but I ain't never touching her because this steel suit snatch over here has got my attention.
Poor princess has blue walls.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I don't know. Back on Zendaya, I think it was great for the movie. Made her a badass bitch. Not that I was just kind of like snubbing the super tough character, but none of what she did felt like obnoxious in any way.
Yeah.
It was like a true, like, in the desert, Taliban fighter fighting the empire.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was awesome. She did great. The last scene, even though book blasphemous, of her like riding off on the sandworm, thought it was dope. It was good.
Yeah. Yeah, I only bring up the point of the kind of the idea of like the almost the feminist point, because I really feel like it just really depends on what Villeneuve's like reasoning was for this, because I can explain it away as her being the audience and being exposition for us so we can understand what's going on in Paul's mind. But if his motivation was like, I just want her to have more agency or whatever, I'll be honest, that's kind of gay. But I do think, his choices were likely motivated by the former as opposed to the latter. But anyways, buddy, your thoughts on Chaney?
This is why, like, I always feel like I could be like the best focus group person, because I feel like I'm always like, I mean, I'm not dumb, but I feel like I'm right at the middle of the bell curve, like on everything. I think I can tell you why she's important in this movie. Oh, she did great. I just liked that just her by being in the movie is going to attract younger people. Like, she's kind of an it star, so that brings just people to the movie to experience it, which I thought was great. The director has said many times and confirmed many times, like, yeah, man, Paul is not the good guy. Like, the story is that he is not the white savior. And so if you have her being just along like she is in the book, we already have Lady Jessica rooting for Paul. We have Stilgar, who is a character that believes in him to no end, who he did great in this movie. So to have another close character that's also 100% with him would seem like overkill and kind of a waste, when you can have, she told him plenty of times in the movie, like, as long as you stay who you are, I'll love you. So when, like, at the end of the movie, like, he did not stay who he was. You have to, I am a dumb person. You do have to spoon feed me, the audience, like certain topics and themes. So now you're stuck in a position where, all right, well, like, I mean, I'm rooting for Paul, but now I'm not rooting for Paul. But I was rooting for Paul. How can I root for Paul but not be a bad guy? Like, it puts you into this whole conundrum, and that's a lot of the themes in Dune. Like, it ain't a black and white world. Like, it's constantly shifting and going, and it's making the best out of the worst, and everything sucks all the time, especially when you just start messing with other people's shit. And her character is important because it puts you in an awkward position. She's not against him. She's also not for him. But she also loves him. If you're, and all these people want girl power movies and whatnot, this movie was fantastic at it. It was somewhat believable in this universe. I thought her love story with Paul, as it was blossoming, was a very sweet story. The dialogue, it was very sweet. Like, the way they built it and just kind of worked it into like a semi montage of a passage of time, where you just kind of slid right in there with them and believed that they were a couple, and they had these intense feelings for each other. Uh, I appreciated that they changed her a little bit in the story to further cement, like, yeah, man, like religious extremism is bad. Like Chinese, she keeps trying to like her character is to remind us, like, hey, like, careful with your rah rah sis boom bahs. This doesn't end well. Yeah, she's great. I loved it. I loved her.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into Stilgar. Stilgar was the shit. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that. I think it was just perfect. I think Stilgar was fucking dope. There's really nothing to be said aside from that. But I'll pass it off to you guys. I do want to point out real quick. I have JC who said, "Oh my god, hi buddy." Oh my god, hi JC. All right, guys. Thoughts on Stilgar? Stilgar was a shit though. I think you're muted, Will. You are muted. I see you. You're muted.
What an idiot.
What an idiot. Fuck him. No, Stilgar was the shit. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything more to say,
Nothing else to say. He was
yeah,
great.
he was perfect. He was perfect. I mean, like, if anything, he was better than what I wanted. Like Stilgar was like exceeded my book expectations, to be honest. Because Stilgar was like always like cool, like badass, but like, and like he was very much always very like all about the Muad'Dib, a very religious guy. But like in this movie, they also gave him like a funny side to where it was like it's kind of like adorable and hilarious and like it almost was like the book version of Stilgar, but more. So I don't know, buddy, if you have any thoughts, anything more substantive to add to that other than he's the shit. So because that's where I'm at. I don't really have anything like more to say about Stilgar. He was awesome.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on each of y'all's things. Because the first time I even knew basically who Will was your first podcast talking about the first Dune. After getting to know Will and then watching this movie, like, Will, you are very much my Stilgar, because when you watch Dune, it is just like, yo, find yourself a friend that believes in you, like Stilgar believes in Paul. Like, I mean, it was tremendous. And yes, he was more Stilgar than the book, like in a good way. And also, the director did a good job of like Fremen culture being hard culture. It's like work hard, play hard. Like a lot of these harsh desert people, they're going to also have very good personality. Jose, you're a blue collar guy. Will definitely is. I am. I've done lots of blue collar jobs. Like when you're out in the heat, like you have to have gallows humor.
Yep.
Like it's like a necessity.
Yeah.
Like so, like he was great with it, and he was adorable. Like to be such a rough, fierce person, yeah, he was adorable.
Yeah, that is a good summation of it. I did want to. There was a point I want to touch on because I think between the both of you, I think you guys said at some point that Paul was the villain, and I actually very much disagree with that. I think he's neither. Well, actually, I don't even say neither. Like he's the hero, the villain, and the victim simultaneously is what he is. Like, and actually, I don't even know if I necessarily say villain. Like, I think villain would be an unfair term for him. I think he's mostly the victim, and in some circumstances, he's the hero. But mostly, he's a tragic story, especially when you see how his story ends, which maybe we'll get into in Messiah when that movie does come out. I'm not sure how that'll play out, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, I do think he's far more a victim than anything else. He's a victim of destiny. And he tried to fight destiny and failed. And then if they, on the off chance they do get into God Emperor like story arc, we'll really be able to see that clearly in how he was the victim. And if anything, God Emperor Dune goes even further into the victim thing to become the hero in a certain fucked up sense while still being the villain. Which that's next level shit. But I think the next person I think we should get into is let's do Fade. Fade Rotha. I really dug that Fade. I I mean, I don't really remember his book counterpart all that well because I don't think he played a huge part in the books. I feel like he played maybe a little bit more, or maybe they put more of a focus on him in the movies. But I fucking dug Fade, and especially just the whole Harkonnen vibe they dug into in this movie. I really feel like they hit the nail on the head so fucking hard there. But yeah, Will, thoughts on Fade, and I guess maybe just I feel like this kind of just ties with the Harkonnen, sphere generally speaking. I feel like because I don't think we need to touch on fucking what's the fucking dude was it Baron Harkonnen. I don't think we really need to touch on him too much. He didn't really have too much of a part in this. Fade did more, but I feel like when we talk about Fade, we're also kind of talking about like Geedy Prime, generally speaking, as well. Just kind of thoughts on that area.
Hey, I mean, Giddy Prime, how cool was that visually? Like
Fuck.
the hard black and whites, just oh man, it might be my favorite scenes of the
Yes.
movie. That whole arena theme, just the I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that in movies. Like it just brought me. It, man, this is a dumb movie to compare this all to, but it was all right. It was fine. It's a Marvel movie, but like the fucking last Thor movie where they go to the fight scene and it's all black and white and they're fighting the gore creatures. It brought me back to that of just like it's almost like the movie comes to a standstill and you're in this whole nother world and it drags you right into it and you're just sitting there going, is the movie black and white now? Like weirdly, I don't know. It was expertly done. And then the fucking lava lamp fireworks just to show the pollution in the atmosphere. Beautiful. Now, Fade Ralph, might be slaying the way you say that, like I do all things. But I thought Aaron Butler killed it. He was great. Like everybody in this movie, they all killed it. There was no like, nobody was not pulling their weight in the cast. But this dude, I thought they really did a good job of focusing on that character. Like the book doesn't really focus on him, but he is very important in the Paul ascendancy story. And like even like if you go to like the whole Benny Gesserit plans to make their own Quiznos heart attack, like it's really supposed to be the child of the woman version of Paul and Fade Ralpha. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that's how they were doing it. Like maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. Right. You're right.
But it's like these were destined to be lovers, but then like Jessica's plan to make the heir for Leto and the Atreides line to like her love for Leto and his want for an heir like disrupted that whole flow of what they wanted to do. Maybe it would have turned out more peaceful, maybe not. Who knows? You know, you could imagine, but that character of Fade, man, what an evil son of a bitch on camera. He made Dave Bautista seem like an idiot, like just slub. Not on his part, but just the movie, like showing him like, look at this fat idiot messing up. Cool dude's here now to cut everybody's throat and to kill Paul Atreides. It was great. He was great.
Yeah, it was. I really can't. I can't emphasize how well they hit the nail on the head with the whole Giddy Prime concept in that movie. It was just like the perfect way to symbolize what the Harkonnens are. Just that whole bit in the movie was just perfect. Like all of that just was a really, without going too deep into the vulgarities of what the Harkonnens are all about, just the visual concepts they're working with. Some of the things that were a little bit more overt too in there, without going overtly overt. They really did hit the nail on the head with like what the Harkonnens are all about. They're just cunts, really, just like shitty fucking people, just perverse, just awful, just disgusting. And they really just hit it on the nail on the head there with like the color scheme, everything, and without having to really go into it. Because like for those who aren't aware, like in the movies, there's like borderline like incestuousness. It's alluded to Harkonnen's like basically maybe not necessarily a homosexual, just basically just like all about holes. Doesn't even give a shit what hole it is. Like just like all about killing. Like just whatever the fucking most awful things you can think about humanity is. That's what the Harkonnens are about, and they just really did a good job on capturing that without having to like overtly be like, here's fucking Baron Harkonnen fucking a dude. Like, you know what I mean? Like they were able to do that. Like they had the scene with him and Fade kissing, which like I feel like I know a lot of people thought that was more like Godfather-ish, but I felt like that was almost felt like pedophilic in a way. That's what I felt like. Almost like there's a weird like connection between the two of them. That's
Definitely.
how I felt.
Definitely,
But yeah,
definitely. From the book, I think it's pretty explicit. Like Baron molested them all, and I think if I remember correctly, they had to cut this. But there's like a plot where Fade tries to assassinate the Baron.
Yep.
Like with a slave boy that he's Epsteining or what have you.
Yeah. Yep. And then he makes him kill all his fucking whores essentially or some shit like that in the books. I forget the specifics. But
Life is rough on Giddy Prime, man.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Any thoughts on Fade? And I guess just kind of Harkonnens more generally.
Yeah. So let's see here. How should I do this? So the character of Fate, like the character was great. A lot of people are sucking this dude's dick about like how he even sounded like he changed his voice to sound like the Baron, like, and they thought that was some cool. I was like, I don't know, like I talked to Will a lot, and like we do impressions all day. It's not that hard. He filled the role great. I think there's plenty of other people that could have done it just as good. Now, how they describe the Harkonnens was very good. When you think of Harkonnens, just they're fueled by unbridled consumption. They indulgence. I mean, especially the Baron, he indulges so much he can't even walk. He's got to float around everywhere. You have, I mean, just especially when you have the wealth of 100 years of spice production, which I think the books alluded to the attack that he ordered for the Sardaukar in the first movie. I think the book is something like 60 year. He had to pay 60 years worth of spice production for that attack to happen. Like he sank a lot of his money into that attack. Even if you look at their spice harvesters, they look like ticks. Like just further, like there's a lot of just subtle things like that to just further. They just, they just consume. The world is polluted. Like it was great. It was great, and I was trying to like pay attention to like doing the chants, the cheers that they were doing in the arena. Like I don't know if you caught that, but there was some cheer that everyone was doing, together. No, he was scary for sure, especially with his weird little pets. Those androgynous things that No, he was good. He was good. He was good. I just think that there's plenty of other people that could have fulfilled that role just fine.
All right, well, fuck you, buddy. I think he killed it. All right. Yeah, I got two more for you guys. I'm not gonna go through the entire cast, but what were you guys' thoughts on Walken as being the Emperor? I found him just kind of like meh. I feel like it was like a weird use of Walken. I feel like anyone could have done it. I felt like I feel like we got a sad old man, which I feel like maybe that was a director's choice. That was that was the vibe they're going to. Maybe that was some sort of reflection on the empire, as it were, as it was decaying, and that fucking Paul was going to take it over. But it was just like I felt like we were missing like the opulence that you would get from like the emperor. He was kind of like in just like what I forget what he was adorned in, but he was kind of like almost like a sack, like a fucking just like an old man in like a shitty fucking like garb, and like it just didn't feel like the emperor of the entire fucking universe that should have like. I feel like they could have captured the vibe of the sad old man in a decaying empire while being surrounded in opulence. I just feel like maybe they missed the mark a little bit there. I mean, feel like it's petty because he didn't like play a huge part in this really. But I don't know, Will. What are your thoughts? Am I hitting the mark there? Is that kind of your same thoughts on it too?
I hate to keep agreeing with everything you say, but like if I had one hard complaint, and it love the movie, but if I had one thing that I would say, don't fucking put Walken in this movie. It took me out of it. He is a fucking old 70, maybe 80-year-old dude just being himself in a fucking gown, just kind of walking around. It was weird. I didn't hate it, but I don't know. It didn't fit in anything to me. It's like every character, like we just talked about, and almost anybody that's a character from the book, it seems like they cared so much about who they were. Like Josh Brolin's character, like even minor, like major book character, but minor in the movie, he is significant and really just shows him just from his every bit of his attire to how he feels about Paul, like you see it in the scenes and all that kind of shit. And Walken to be the emperor of the fucking universe is just Christopher Walken hanging out with his daughter and like being a little dramatic about the plots that he's weighed. I don't know. I didn't dig it. No, that's going to be a no on Walken for me.
Yeah, buddy.
Well, I think in the books you see or at least hear from the emperor more versus just like kind of like a big emperor reveal. And the princess addresses it like how he basically kind of died inside after the attack on the Atreides. I think he works in a manner of just for one, the value when you hear who the emperor is going to be and you hear Walken, for everyone to go, what? Like, but also for everything Dune Dune, for as deep as it is, it's incredibly vague. There's a lot of stuff that's open for Dune. So like having Christopher Walken, like he had a very vacant look. So like perhaps the Emperor used to be what you guys were expecting, but we didn't get to see that. We're seeing what it did to him after the attack on Atreides. But like you can't have Walken being something and not have him be Walken. It can't be that. Like I was really watching it to figure out like, all right, how is he going to be a space emperor and not Christopher Walken? And then like the next thing you know, he's on his throne and he's just going, Baron. But like, you're just like, oh, he's Walken. Like, all right, like we're there. I understand I think I understand what they were going for because he's a weird dude. Like Walken is a weird kind of eccentric dude. You don't understand what he's doing. So like there's a lot of stuff open for interpretation in the Duneverse. So I understood the choice, but like you can't have him not be that. You can't. It can't be done. Prove me wrong.
Yeah, well, all right. I think last character I want to get into, and then we'll kind of get into our thoughts on maybe the future of where this goes. I want to talk about this is Anna Taylor-Joy, the fish-eyed bitch who plays Aaliyah Atreides, and I also want to kind of just pair this with Lady Jessica because in a certain weird sense, they're kind of both the same character in this movie, I think, because they're just very connected. There were definitely, this was very, one of the, between Cheney and then Aaliyah, these were probably the two biggest departures from the books. So I just kind of want to get your thoughts. I mean, I don't know, I'm very torn on it because I do think I liked what they did in a certain sense, but also I'm a little concerned on what that means. Like, is that going to fuck shit up for the future? Like, how do you adapt from that from there? But just, I don't know. I think Will gets what I'm getting at. I'll pass it off to Will. Just kind of, Lady, Aaliyah, and then just kind of Lady Jessica generally. I guess to touch on Lady Jessica before I pass it off to Will real quick, I think Lady Jessica killed it, just specifically on her role. I think she got a little more spooky, a little bit more like over the top. If anything, maybe you could almost make the case she was a little bit too much, a little too spooky. But I think they really did capture the vibe of like what the Bene Gesserit were going for, trying to really dig into that like religious extremism vibe. But yeah, Will, on to you.
Nah, yeah, book blasphemy here. The not having Alea be born was weird to me. I knew it was going to happen from just me being a nerd following my online threads before the movie came out, preparing myself. I've softened a little bit. I knew it was going to happen, and I don't know. I love like 80s Dune. Like they do have like the one thing they do right is the little kid. Like she's creepy as fuck, Alea, and she just straight up fucking murders Baron Harkonnen. Not that Timothy Charlemagne's walking up to him on the steps saying grandfather. Wasn't a badass fucking scene. I did miss that little toddler version of his sister. It's cool. They did it good. I can see why they did it, just like the Johnny stuff. As a fan of this movie, I will accept it and love it, but I am worried, just like Johnny, about what's coming next, how he's going to wrap up this trilogy, what they're going to do with it. Because I really I don't know, Dune really gets interesting after at the fourth book. Like, guys, hear me out. There's a few more Dune books to read, and they get fucking really gnarly after that.
It gets wild as fuck after that.
Did you complete them all? Did you read them all, Jose?
Yeah, I read all of Frank's books. Yeah, I didn't read any of his son's books because I just didn't give a shit about that. But all of Frank's, yes.
Yeah, I people poo-poo the last two, but I mean, where it's at's God Emperor. We're gonna need a lot of things to get to there.
Real quick, it's Dune, Dune Messiah, which fuck these first two movies have just been Dune, it's literally just been Dune, and then the next movie will be Dune Messiah, and then we have Children of Dune, and then was it God Emperor Dune, and then I forget. I think Frank has one more book after that. I forget what the fuck that were. Two more. I forget
Two
what the
more.
other two were.
It's Heretics of Dune.
Yep, Heretics.
And Dune Chapter House.
Yeah, the Heretics and Chapter House were like, what's going on here? But it's also like, he didn't get to continue it. He died and his kids continued. Although I will say Chapter House ended on like, I'm interested. Where are you going? And then he died. So, and then his kids tried to act like, oh, we're carrying on the tradition. And it's like, I don't know if you really are. I don't feel like that's where he was going with it. But okay.
I've been itching. Like, really, I know like most of fandom is like, fuck his kid. He's doing blasphemy. It's lame like Star Wars. I like fucking Star Wars. I almost feel like in the next year or so, I might do a dive and read like, they say like once you finish the Herbert books, the kid and whatever other writer, these books supposedly are very shitty. But I think I'm going to do a deep dive and check them out. Because like they did two more to finish out the Dune story. And there's supposed to be like a prequel series that you read to really get whatever their sequel is. sounds lame, but I might have to check it out. The prequel series is supposed to be about the whole Balerian jihad, where like mankind overtook the machine, and that's why there's no computers in the Dune universe like thousands of years before. I don't know. I'm gonna check it out, but I don't know. I like you at the end of Chapter House. I'm going, well, fuck, this shit's really getting interesting. Where are we going? But shit, we're really skipping ahead. We got on to Buddy for skipping ahead earlier, and now we're like 5,000 years in the future when. So back in what were we even on? What
Lady Jessica and Aaliyah.
Yeah. What are they going to do with this character in the future? Because in the next book, can we spoiler Dune Messiah a little bit?
I don't give
All
a
right,
shit.
we're going to
Yeah,
spoiler Dune Messiah for no non-book fucking Gentiles out here. All right, so like next book, we're getting after Jihad. Paul's all sad. He's fucking tore up. And Aaliyah is like, this is where they're definitely going to have to change some shit. She's like, I'm 15 years old, but really mature for my age. And I have a love like story with the clone of Duncan, Idaho.
it gets wild.
It gets wild, dude. And like that clone is going to be part of a murder plot with Princess Cuckold and some fucking space navigator fish dudes and all kind of shit. It gets wild.
If you never read the books, you're like, what the fuck? But I'm
What
telling you,
the
it's dope.
fuck? If you read the books, when you're reading the books, you're like, what the fuck am I reading the entire way through? But the next movie, I'm very interested in what they're doing. Like as far as where Chani's at, as far as where Alea's at, and then like Paul. Like a lot of the book is Paul just talking about like, I'm worse than Hitler.
I mean, he kind of is in a certain sense if you think about it.
It gets really specific. He's just like, I've done like 97 Holocausts.
I've killed billions.
Billions. They're so
I know
bad.
6 billion sounds like a lot, but it's really not. If anything, it's more.
I totally fucking just sanitized planets. Just didn't even. It's real. The Fremen got rough. That is where fundamentalism leads you, ladies and gentlemen. Like, it is the ultimate rah. And I don't know. Where are they going with the next movie? It'll be interesting. But I did miss Murder Toddler.
Yeah, I know that did feel weird, especially if you understand her arc. It's like I feel like that takes a little bit away from Aaliyah's arc, because once again, spoilers for the future. She's a preborn. If you watch the movie, you know this. She's literally like has all these different like all the ancestral memories of everything going on, and one of those ancestral memories is Baron Harkonnen, and that's literally the one that kind of takes control at some point. And that's the motherfucker she murdered in the books. So it's like, I don't know. I feel like it takes a little bit away from her. If later, I don't know if they'll go the full on Harkonnen like possessed version of Aaliyah, but it's like if they do, it's like it kind of just takes a little bit away from her. If that's like if the personality that consumes her is the one she murdered. I know there's some like poetic thing going on there that gets taken away from. But I don't know, whatever. Maybe it's not a big deal. But all right, Buddy, your thoughts on Lady Jessica and Aaliyah?
It was a good pick for Anya Taylor-Joy because, yeah, she looks weird. Of course, she's gonna be a weird abomination person. Yeah. I thought Lady Jessica killed it. I saw Dune here in Savannah. We have it's the second largest IMAX on the East Coast. It's enormous. And the scenes with Lady Jessica, like especially after she drinks the worm piss, the scene when she tells Paul, like, you'll have to see it, the beauty and the horror, like, it was frightening the way they did that. I thought it was cool how like she literally, if she wants her and Paul to survive, they really got to lean into the prophecy. So I mean, she literally like she enshrouds herself in it. It's written on her clothes. It's on her face. Um, and after she drinks the worm piss, she becomes a different person. Like it's very spooky. I thought the basket she wrote on the sandworms was really cool. No, she did great. That shit rules. She kind of talks when she whispers. You can hear a lot of the spit in her mouth, which is kind of affects my tism a little bit. But other than that, she did great.
Thoughts on Aaliyah?
I don't. So I saw this movie before Will, and I knew that was like a big change, but it didn't change the overall story of Paul, whether she's been born or not, whether Cheney is a ride or die bitch or a ride or die until a certain point bitch. None of that changed the story of Paul's use of religious power, but it all goes, yeah, but what is he gonna do with this third movie then? Like that's where it's gonna get fishy. Now I have not audiobook listened to Messiah yet. I
Shit.
think I listened to like the first chapter.
Well, you're fucked in this next segment of this episode here.
Oh, don't worry. I've spent as a dumb person, I spent a good portion of my life really just camouflaging my way, BSing my way through things. I have a college degree doing that and a science, believe it or not. So don't worry. Proceed.
Well, all right. Well, real quick, I do want to take a moment to recognize my sponsor for today's episode, NWJ Shave Co. Big Shave has been psyoping the American people for decades with their multi-blade razor scam. Eliminate razor burn or irritation and ingrown hairs caused by deep penetrating multi-blade cartridges. Return to the traditional shave. You don't need expensive plastic replacement cartridges. NWJ Shave Co. supplies you with single stainless steel blades like your grandfather used to use. High quality razor blades for a precise and clean shave. The chrome plated Swedish stained steel blades guaranteed a long lasting razor made of electroplated brass. The twist to open handle found on our traditional safety razors makes changing blades a snap. Whether shaving your entire face or just edging up your beard, our single blades provide a single grade shave for a fraction of the price. $75 allows you to shave for an entire year. That gets you 100 stainless steel razor blades, one traditional safety razor, and that thing's fucking dope, I will tell you. And then also you can sign up for the Quarter Shave Club where you pay 25 cents per shave. That's for those guys out there to shave every single fucking day. Take down Big Shave and visit NWJShaveCo.com to get yourself their traditional safety razor. Keep your eyes open. There's going to be some new shave, body, and hair soaps available soon. NWJShaveCo.com. Use Jose for 10% off your entire order. Yes, guys, let's get into our thoughts for where this goes. Buddy, you're going to have to fucking talk out your ass a little bit here because, yeah, this is where we get into Dune Messiah. How does this play out? Because I do think, while I do love 1 and 2, I am very concerned about where this goes. Now, I will say 1 and 2 has given me the confidence in Villeneuve. But at the same time, some of the things he shirked around in 1 and 2 has made me a little bit concerned that this is going to be like things that add up for the next one. Especially because I feel like Messiah is where it really gets fucking weird. Like in the books, 1 is like not very weird, kind of weird. Number 2, or I guess never mind. I'm thinking this wrong because the fact that they fucking basically took book 1 and broken it 2 is throwing me off. But in a certain sense, like what is in movie 1 or Dune 1 is kind of like it makes sense. It's not that weird. There's like mentats and some stuff. The second half of the book, it's a little bit weird with like the preborn and Aaliyah and stuff. But then Messiah, the second book, is when it gets full on fucking weird. This is where we get into like the fucking Space Guild navigators and the face dancers and Twi'leks and all sorts of shit. And I feel like them shirking around some of the weirdness is making me a little bit concerned about where this next movie goes. And the more, and then I guess maybe we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves because I know all of us here, I guess I say all of us. Once again, Buddy, you just said a minute ago you haven't read the other books past, book one. But, God Emperor Dune, for those who have read all of Frank's books, God Emperor Dune is like the pristine. This is like the shit. This is when you're like, holy fuck, this is peak. This is dope as fuck. This is like God Emperor Worm. But this is like next level weird. This is where you get into like crazy shit. Like you have a literal fucking worm dude who's the fucking god of or the God Emperor. And now how are they? I don't know if they're going to go to God Emperor. I'm very concerned. I really feel like Villeneuve will probably stop at Messiah, personally. Maybe he'll go further. I'm not sure. But I guess like the more they kind of shirk away from things and change things, I just feel like these are things that are going to exponentially fuck up things later in the future. Like if you really do have an idea of like doing God Emperor Dune and you are making these little, well, they seem little, but they add up as things go on. Like the fact that we really, like, I know what a mentat is. Does anyone who's only watched the movies know what a fuck a mentat is? Does it, like, anyone out there, please comment. If you've only watched the movies, tell me if you know what the fuck a mentat is. And that's like one of the most basic things is like a mentat. Like you have like the Bene Gesserit, and then like outside of that, probably slightly less important, you have the mentats. That's kind of important. For those who aren't aware, fucking Paul is a mentat. That's like a core part of why he's able to be the Quiznos heart attack is because he's a fucking mentat. He's a mentat. He's got mentat powers. And he's been trained as a mentat by Thufir or whatever the fuck. And so that's part of why he was able to embrace his power as the fucking, I can't even call it anything but the Quiznos heart attack. I don't even know what it's called aside from that now, because I've been calling it the Quiznos heart attack so fucking much, because I don't know, it just makes me laugh, and now I forget it was the, I don't know, Will can correct me. But all right, I'll pass it off to you. What are your thoughts about where this goes? Are you concerned as I am too? Because it's like, yes, I've enjoyed 1 and 2, but it's like I feel like these little changes they made very much concern me, because these are changes that will add up and throw off the narrative for later. Unless he finds some fucking way to like just really pull together, and maybe he does. I don't fucking know.
No, I'm with you on the concerns, but what you're just saying, let's do a social experiment. Buddy, do you know what a mentat is?
Yes.
Ooh.
He read the
Oh,
first
yeah,
book.
he did read the book. Oh, yeah, fuck you, buddy. Why are you fucking confusing everybody? We're drinking blueberry wine. You're over here sober. Didn't read the books, read the books. All right.
Well, I will, but dude, I'm telling you, there is YouTube short videos galore that explain a lot of the stuff to the nth degree.
Yeah.
But like I always the most fascinating thing about this, because it's so far into the future, and right now we have people like the who's that ice swimmer guy, Wim Hof. Are you familiar with this person, Jose?
I am not. I don't know what the fuck you're talking
He's
about.
been on Rogan a couple times. This guy, he's like, he does this breath work, and he can like get in really cold water. He can. There was some way they were able to give him some sort of like toxic fungus, and he was able to do his breathing exercise and like activate his immune system to fight it. Like they were able to track it. Like he's very important, because like, well, all right, let's take a person like him and then just zip forward 20,000 years into the future. It's like, yeah, that's what the Bene Gesserit are. Like and then you have the super autistic kids that are good at counting toothpicks. Well, let's just send that 20,000 years into the future. There's your mentats. Like, all right, I'm in. So if someone has that control over their body where they can determine if they're going to have a boy or a girl, then it makes sense that someone can have control over their body and their muscles and their nerves so much that they can be these face dancer people that I hear about. Like, it all seems kind of believable if you put it into scientific terms. I'm vaguely aware of Dune Messiah. So yeah, I do know that, like, yeah, the changes, things are going to have to be like rectified really quick. The directors earned my trust in that. Um, Other than that, I know it's going to be a long wait.
I gotta say something. I thought a lot about Dune. I've read the books, watched all the fucking movies, documentaries, all that shit. Part of me never like really made the connection. Today's autistic kids are tomorrow's mentats. That's I fucking love it. It is that is autism evolved. It's like the mentat, just in the same. Yeah, it's fucking great. Yeah, I don't know. I'm buddy. Sometimes you be smart.
I'm always the bell curve thing where the dumb people and the smart people have the same answer. I'm never sure which. I have the right answer. I'm just never sure why.
And on that note, like that's where like all the coolest shit about Dune, like to me, is really there's no fucking aliens. Like I love Star Wars, but there's no fucking Wookiees and fucking all this shit. These are all versions of humanity that have evolved into different shit. And like Dune 1, which is Dune 1 and 2, the movie, really gets into like this world that it builds of feudalism and religious power, and that's a story. And there's a lot of fans. I wonder if Denny Villeneuve is like one of the Dune fans that are like, Dune's where it's at, and the sequels are meh. You know what I mean? I kind of get that fear from them because there is really like Dune is something else, and then once you hit the sequels, it becomes something kind of entirely different. But as a science fiction fan, I love the whole series more than just the book. Like you were saying, God Emperor of Dune, that is my jam. That's where it's at. That's peak Dune right there. It's right there smack in the middle. It is full of philosophy and political intrigue and all the fucking weirdness. It's really fucking weird and really I mean, like, there's some fucking shit in there that is like, how did this motherfucker sit here and type this on page? If you tell me sitting here going, all right, there's a scene where the clone of Duncan, Idaho is climbing up a cliff, and the leader of this female superiority, like the peak of female, like evolution from thousands of years of a tyrant making an all-female army that controls the entire universe, is watching Khal Drogo climb up a mountain, and she just comes all over herself as she's watching this. She's just like, ah! And that is in God Emperor of Dune. And one of the most important things, this is where the series is going, fellas. And it's important, and humanity needs to understand it. We're getting to. I would like this whole. I want to see God Emperor of Doom, but I don't see how that makes it to film.
I don't see how that makes sense. I don't see how that happens. As it's currently situated, unless Villeneuve really just fucking somehow really just pulls all the threads back together to really put it back on book, I really don't understand. Because I really feel like between the Cheney variation and the Aaliyah variation, it's like, how do you get these threads back? And then also I feel like, but in these two movies, he's been kind of adverse to getting super weird, and he also really hasn't explored some of the other things aside from the Bene Gesserit. And it's like these other things are key to other parts of it to like build off of. So it's like, how do we get from there to God Emperor Dune? I really feel like Messiah would probably be our last one. Because I think, is it Messiah or Children of Dune to where he rides off in the sunset, essentially, on a fucking worm?
At the end of Messiah.
Yep, that's what. Okay.
I mean,
So I feel like that's the ending right there. That's Villeneuve's trilogy. I really feel like that's where he's going to end it.
Well, all right, and that could be awesome. Like he can make this series.
Yeah.
If what he has to do to get us back on track for post Messiah is, and I don't think it's that hard. Like we're in the book blasphemy area, but every movie adaptation takes this. Like even Lord of the Rings. You mentioned earlier, Lord of the Rings. Everybody forgets Return of the King. There's a whole fucking like the hobbits end up back in the Shire, and Sauron is like, I'm taking over the Shire now, and they have to lead a hobbit revolution.
Yeah. Let's okay. All right. Let's be real though. I know what you're talking about, but that felt, even when I read the books, that felt like a prologue. That felt like we're wrapping up things. It's not that important to the story. It's just kind of like, all right, we're finishing up, whatever. All right, like it felt like a prologue. So it's like, who gives a fuck? But
you're fair. And no, like in the movie adaptation of Lord of the Rings, it's perfect, and like no one would accept us going to that bullshit. Like to be like, also Frodo led a revolution. So one more ending to Lord of the Rings would have like people would have walked out. They had like 5 endings in there. One more would have people would have stopped. But Messiah, to get on track, to get back on track for the weirdness that me and you want. We want God Emperor of Dune. We want Leto the second. We can't do. He's not Leto the second anymore either, because like in the book. They completely like. There's 2 years that we didn't touch on in the movie. They kind of montaged it over months, but it's really like 2 years because like Alea's born. She's a toddler. Paul and Chani.
Paul has a kid.
He
has
a kid
in the book.
And
like he's a kid that dies. It's killed by the Harkonnens, I believe.
Dune really does like in the same way. Return of the King is like all prologue. Basically, all of Dune 2 is prologue to Dune 1. It runs in the book. You're like, man, this shit's getting interesting. Oh, fuck, what's happening? Damn, it's over. Like, it happens really quick in the book. It's like Paul's kid dies, fucking, and then the Emperor shows up and all this happens.
Real quick, I did want to point out, maybe agree with me or not, it felt like Paul's kid dying in the books felt super impersonal. It felt just like, oh, kid died. All right, move on.
Yeah. It was very quick. It was just like, yo, shit happens. Maybe you're madder at the Emperor. One thing I want to say, like we shit talked Christopher Walken and the Emperor, the fucking ship coming in, that was pretty fucking dope. The spear, badass. But back to what I say. To get Messiah back on track for our weirdness, we need Chani and Paul to come back and have some sort of love story where they rekindle and have them goddamn twins that we know are important. Leto the second or first, and Gamora, if I'm saying it right. If that's not the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Her name, yeah, the sister.
It's something to that nature. She's not important either. Women. Like, what we really got to get to is those twins got to be born. And we have to have some sort of.
You know what? Sorry. What the fuck even happens with the sister in the fucking later God Emperor? I don't feel like she does anything.
No. She is the antagonist in Children of Dune because she gets fully possessed by Baron Harkonnen, and she's
I thought that was Aaliyah. Wasn't it Aaliyah?
Yeah, that's her. Oh yeah, you're asking Gamora.
Yeah.
She's out. She's chill.
Yeah, she doesn't do anything, right? Like I forgot she even existed.
He don't do shit, and it's weird. Yeah, I don't get it. Yeah.
All right. Well, now that I forgot there was even a twin. Now that I think about it, I'm like, oh yeah, that was right. There was a brother sister thing, and I'm like, I don't even remember where that fuck even went. She just kind of disappeared into the. I guess she just kind of died as he lived for thousands of years after becoming a worm, and just no one gave a shit. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I would assume like she's such a like minor character. It could be a thread like the movies cut off to fucking streamline. I wouldn't be over here. The nerd in me dies for it, but I wouldn't, protest the movie or anything. She's it. It is what it is. The books are what they are, but at some point, Leto has to be born from like Chani and Paul rekindling. Alea needs to like have some sort of like she is a character now, and she's set up for some future. She's the abomination that everybody's fearing, or I guess they don't have to make it Baron Harkonnen. I wonder if like they make it like something like because Paul and her and Jessica are all like part of that taking the water of life or whatever, and they have that ancestry thing going on. So like maybe you could bring Baron Harkonnen back in with some Paul shit or something, but I don't know. They could go that direction. I do
Yeah,
want to see
it would feel weird. I mean, honestly, even in the books, it felt weird that they brought it back to Baron Harkonnen. You're like, why are you even making this a point? But I feel like in the movies, it would even feel more so. You're like, why do I give a shit about Aaliyah being possessed by the spirit of Baron Harkonnen? Like, what? Who gives a fuck? Like, it feels even less so that in the movies. And then also there's the time jump thing, because that's the big departure is she was a fucking toddler in the book, and she killed Baron Harkonnen, and now in the movie she's not even born. So it's like, because in the books it was literally years that they spent with the fucking the Fremen, and then later, and then fucking yeah, and then she can't. Obviously, we have Aaliyah and all that, but in the books it's like no, she's literally is like the span of a couple months essentially is what it is.
Yeah. I don't know where they're going, but I would like to see some sort of respect put to that character and her downfall, like her initially just setting it up for an eventual downfall. Who knows? Maybe they play it where, not that I want this, but maybe they're playing it into the next movie. You do see toddler or 10-year-old Alea or something to that
They
nature.
got to do a time jump, because in the next movie we get Gula fucking Duncan, Idaho, and they're
Yeah.
supposed to be he's supposed to be deep dicking Aaliyah. So it's like, how the fuck is that supposed to work? And then you have Timothy Chalamet, who looks like a fucking 19-year-old at best, and it's like we're supposed to have what, like at least a fucking 10+ year time jump, like
America will be uncomfortable.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
like what are they gonna do? They're gonna have what's his face? Fucking Jason Momoa fucking macking on a 10-year-old at best? Like what are we doing here?
imagine him reading the script like, what did I'm already signed on for this? Like, oh no.
You have a sex scene with me and an 8-year-old? What is wrong with you?
Jimmy, let's talk about that. Shit.
I mean, I
Did you
get it. She's preborn and she's very mature. She's basically like a fucking, fucking eons old in a certain sense, but she still fucking looks 8. Like, come on.
Like, since this is some sort of like anarchist libertarian adjacent podcast, we should talk about like what is the age of consent if you are cognizant in the womb.
What if you have the memories of all of the entire human history of that you have genetic memory of? I mean, you're essentially millions of years old at that point, right?
Oh, damn it. So, yeah, what the fuck are they going to do with this next movie?
Have anyone you guys watched what, House of Dragon?
Yeah.
Like I think twice in that series, in the first season, they like time jump. Like they completely get rid of the actors that like and love. Like does that so like
Are they
world,
gonna depart from Timothy Chalamet? And who? I mean, if so, I feel like who? Or are they gonna make him look older? I don't know. Like
I say that so like it worked as far as a time jump goes. So in a world where that's possible, and the Lego movie, a movie about Legos, is actually a really super great movie. I trust the process. I don't know.
I don't know if I can trust the process though, because it's like I don't know. So much of the time stuff is really important. For one, all right, they ended this. One other departure that we haven't mentioned yet between the movies and the books. At the very end of this movie, for those who aren't aware, in the books, what happens, and it was very similar to the end of this movie, is he essentially fucking chumps out the Emperor. It's kind of like, hey, I'm gonna fucking blow up all the fucking spice on this planet unless you let me be Emperor, or I'll probably fucking kill you anyways because we're right here and I could kill you. So here's your choice. Like, I'm gonna fuck up everything in your world, or you can just kind of fade off into the darkness and live your life, and I'll be Emperor. And in the books, they just kind of like, all right, cool, you're Emperor. That's that. And then they just kind of like hand wave over the whole jihad things, and you kind of time skip forward, and you're just kind of like, jihad happened. We don't really know the exact reasons why. Jihad. All right. But in this, I will say, in this movie, in the movies, they go, all right, cool, the Emperor backs off, but now the Lancerad, which is kind of all the other houses, it seems like they're not quite ready to accept this fate. And so there's kind of like political intrigue and wars and blah, blah. And so that's how they explain the jihad. Which I will say, I do like that, because in a certain sense, because it explains the situation a lot better. I always was kind of like in the books, like, they just kind of hand wave the jihads. Like, why the fuck do we even have jihads? Like, is it just like political unrest in other worlds? Is that what you're saying? Like, I just kind of make some assumptions that that's why we had some big giant jihad. Whereas in the movies, they're like, well, the other major houses didn't accept this quite like the Emperor did. And so it's just like they're not accepting you as the Emperor, so you have to enforce your rule. And so therefore now we have the jihads. Makes sense. But point getting at is kind of like, so in this next movie, it would be assumed that we would go through, essentially have some sort of show the jihads, go into that a little bit of some sort. So then what are we supposed to have, a time jump in the middle? I don't, I mean, I guess you could sum that up in some sort of like a flashback or something, but I mean, I guess they kind of hand wave in the book, so why the fuck couldn't you just flashback it in the movies? But I guess it's just kind of like we're making some fairly major departures, while I guess it does make sense. Because I will say that is something I found deficient in the books, that between the Butlerian Jihad and the Jihads, both of the Jihads, you're kind of like, they just kind of hand waved them. They never really like went too deep into them. You're just kind of like, take my word for it. It fucking happened, and don't worry about the details. And it seems like in the movies they're kind of being like, no, we're going to focus on the jihad a little bit more, since they actually flesh it out more by making it make more sense with the fact that other houses aren't going to accept it. Although I will say, in a certain sense, the books made more sense, because it's like, hey, dude, he's holding all of your fucking spice hostage. So maybe just fucking bend over backwards and spread your cheeks. Because, like, this is all your fucking spice. This is a big fucking deal. And the Spacing Guild, which once again, they didn't really go into the Spacing Guild in these movies at all. So they didn't really explain why the Spacing Guild is a huge fucking deal, and why the fact that you're threatening the spice would be a huge fucking deal. Would make them immediately bend over backwards and spread their cheeks and be like, yeah, sure, you're the Emperor. I don't know, there's a lot going on there, I guess. I don't know, thoughts, Will?
No, I'm with you. I could see the like best opening of just being like a montage of what happened with the jihad, and then you get like a, sad boy Timothy Charlemagne being like, man, I sure Hitlered this thing up. Get a Hitler.
Oh,
Whoop.
God damn it, I killed 6 billion people.
Oh, fuck, man.
6 trillion.
All I wanted was a little revenge, and here we go. And, I can see them going to that, because I can't see the whole fucking movie. They're not going to do like a Passion of the Christ level uncomfortable, like, this is the Fremen fucking crucifying this planet.
They're gonna have them at podiums doing this a lot.
Yeah. We're going to have to gloss over that. We're going to see like Star Wars opening, like Dune 3. Jihad happened, like the scroll. The jihad happened.
It just says a fuckload of people died.
That was too much. Like, oh, I don't know. I think we're gonna gloss over the jihad. Yeah, as much as like you were right. This movie, if anything that it was improved upon the books, was this whole like this shit's going bad. Like you really get that feeling. Like in the books, you don't get that feeling from it. You're like, victory, emperor, rah. And then the second book was like, man, we fucked that shit up. This movie really leads you into here goes the G.
It really is. It's like I'm emperor, and the next book is like, hey, we killed like a fuckload of people, like trillions of people. I'm not gonna really explain to you exactly why, but we did.
Like Michael Scott, me much. Just fucking whoops. And then it's everybody else being like, man, he fucking sucks. And he won't give me no babies. And everybody else is like, he's holding the spice. And
Turned
yeah,
out,
like it does, like the next movie has to be like Paul fucked up. Like he took the revenge path and he rejects what is perceived as the golden path to where like the rest of the books go to. Like the survival of humanity and what it's going to take for them to progress upon whatever terrible future they're seeing, like in this, whatever the spice is telling them. And like, so like Paul for the next few movies is going to have to be like like you say, he's not the villain, he's not the hero, he's kind of a victim of like this whole circumstance of like this shit happened to him. He tried to get revenge best way he could. And like, he sees the ramifications of it. And then he will ultimately, if they want to hold to any kind of standard of like book integrity, ultimately Paul will see what he has to do in the future and just reject it outright and be like, humanity has to do this on their own. I'm not going to do all this shit. I'm not going to be this terrible tyrant that happens. And then his son's like, well, I'm going to do it, Dad. And then he gets sandworms to eat them or whatever.
Well, this is where I disagree with you. I think that the theme between the entire arc of Frank's books is that Paul actually rejected the golden path. He was essentially going down the golden path, but rejected it because he was not willing to embrace the utter depravity that it required to do it. And then his son, Leto II, accepted it and just kind of, in a certain sense, as fucked up as it is, he's kind of almost like a human sacrifice of his own, in that he completely sacrificed his entire life, forgoed any sort of like human connection in any real sense, and, lived thousands of years being one of the most hated human beings there is, essentially Hitler, squared, and fucking, and managed to put humanity down a path that avoided cataclysm. Whereas Paul essentially sort of chickened out. He was not willing to fully embrace entire sacrifice, and he was trying to avoid the jihad the entire time. And not to say that the jihad was necessarily okay, but then it's a weird conundrum to understand. You have to read the entire books, but it's almost like Leto II becomes this example of to humanity and for the rest of history of why you don't want this sort of power, because this was awful, right? But also at the same time, he also did put them down the path to avoid cataclysm in the future.
He's like Leto, like reading the books, like Leto, his son becomes your favorite character if you really embrace. You're right. Like Leto accepts the golden path, which is almost like this reverse Jesus, like Hitler character of like, okay, Jesus like fucking let some Romans kill him for all of our sins or whatever. Like this motherfucker sees what humanity needs to survive thousands of years in the future, which is women coming back to get us or whatever. Like so, but he fucking submits himself to like a life of dickless slithering around caves as a fucking worm as he fucking is the worst tyrant humanity's ever seen. And he's like the most hated villain that you could imagine, but only he can see that it's necessary to bring humanity into like past what is going to kill it or what will stuff it out eventually. And he like, I don't know, it's a mind fuck of a character for you to like read about him. That's why God Emperor is peak fucking Dune, and why we have to get to this point to like, I don't know. I just want to see the fucking giant worm talking about Duncan Idaho fucking his wife.
Well, what do you think?
The
What do you
fucking
think
dude-
though? What do you think though about the trilogy ending with Messiah and then continuing on with like an animated adaptation? I think that would be dope because
if
I don't see Villeneuve going the full, and I feel like with something like animation, you could really explore that and really go nuts with it.
I'm down with it. There's a lot of like books that you read that are fantasy books that you don't, Hollywood's gonna fuck it up, and animation's a way for shit to happen. But Denis Villeneuve, he'll make his trilogy. It happens. I hope he fucking brings around like the Chani character and the Alea character, where we can have some sort of kind of semi-faithful adaptations of these characters brought into a Children of Dune and a God Emperor of Dune somewhere. It can still be done. I've any dorkdom that comes out in like comic book adaptions and shit. It's always like, oh man, are they gonna fuck up the Wolverine character? Like he can still do these three things before the third movie. And then like the third movie comes out now. Fuck. But Denis Villeneuve, hey, I'm trusting it. These movies were perfect. He's going to come out with Messiah. There's going to be things that are different than the book. Let's hope he brings back the Chani character and the Paul love story, ties it into a fucking sweet knot that we can all like go, oh, okay, there's love. Twins are born, or even just later, whatever has to happen. There's the Alea character where we have some sort of progression, the Duncan Idaho clone, and furthermore clones that progress throughout the series have to get started. There's a lot of shit to touch on. Maybe they bring in some of the fucking elements of Children of Dune to kind of like flesh out the story. I don't know. He could do a lot of shit.
It just sounds like too much for one movie, to be honest. Like, and it's just like he's been so adverse to going super duper weird, and the next movie is just like demands super duper weird. Like you literally like in the beginning of the fucking Dune Messiah, it literally starts off. I mean, maybe not like right off the bat, but essentially like pretty early in the book, if not right off the bat. It's like a plot starts between a fucking space guild navigator, a fucking face dancer, fucking a few other fucking weird ass characters, or like some of the more bizarre characters within Dune that we haven't even been slightly introduced to. Like even with just Mentats, which is like surface level shit in fucking Dune, is like you literally have Thufir that they never even. I don't even know if they even directly have said Mentat in these Dune movies. They just showed Thufir once, and he did the weird eye thing, and you're like, if you're a book nerd, you're like, oh shit, he's doing Mentat stuff. But if you're like a fucking nobody, you're like, what the fuck is he doing? You know,
He's stemming out. He's stemming out.
He's fucking spurging the fuck out, dude. Like, what is that? Like, so it's like I don't know. I'm very concerned about how they fucking, because like fuck, dude. The next movie is like you have a fucking clone of Duncan Idaho that's like super duper philosophical and is like a Mentat himself, and then there's this weird fucking like what dwarf character that somehow is the catalyst for this fucking whole thing. Was it?
Them guys are cool. Like them will be cool visuals. What are they? The Talaxel?
Twi'leks, or
Dude,
whatever the fuck.
buddy, do you know anything about them motherfuckers?
Oh, I can just hear you guys getting your lunch money stolen.
Listen, dude, this is like the alt-right, like
Oh, I'm listening.
it's so far into this like the characters.
They
of
literally
like,
evolved their bitches just to be birthing chambers.
The women have no. They're just art
They're
of it. It's just like tits and
they're
torso and like
unthinking
porn
birthing chambers.
hooked up to it, and they're all like little gray dorks, like that are like little shriveled up dwarf dudes that are like like they just have What is their whole thing? It's like
Their thing
technology.
is like genetic manipulation, I think, is kind of like
Yeah,
their
yeah,
thing.
because they
So
make
that's
the face
yeah.
dances, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, they make the golas too, I believe, which is
yeah.
so they make. I believe they're the ones that make the face dancers. So they're all about genetic manipulation, is essentially. And I don't know if it's a Twi'leks. I want to say it's a Twi'leks. It's like they're like kind of like a pariah within the Dune universe because there's the whole like Butlerian jihad thing where like we're not supposed to make thinking machines, and maybe I'm mixing them up with another race where it's like they're really pushing the limits on what's allowed. And maybe that's another race, but I think the Twi'leks might be the ones that were like really pushing that too. But yeah, it gets really fucking weird territory in the next movie. So you're like, or next book. So you're like, how do you pull this off while staying true to the main elements? Because I'm gonna be frank. I like for one, like the dwarf I just mentioned, which is actually a fairly significant part in the movie, or not in the movie, in the book. The little dwarf that kind of becomes the catalyst for Duncan Idaho to kind of like, spoiler, for I guess I think it's the whole plot was Duncan was supposed to be the one that fucking kills him, I believe, but then he like I think essentially breaks his programming.
Leia's 15-year-old, you know.
Box breaks the
Leia
programming.
breaks the program. Shit gets fucking weird, folks.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets weird. It gets very weird. So I'm like, how do we get there from here? And I'm very concerned. I don't know. I don't know but I mean, I guess at the end of the day, as long as he like rides off in the sunset, sees the error of his ways, I guess we're kind of there. I mean, I guess so far as like main themes of it, I don't know. I guess like the more I think about it, the more doomer I get because I'm like, what the fuck? And then from there, like even if they somehow pull it off, if they still are like, oh well, now we're gonna go Children of Dune, now we're gonna do God Emperor Dune, it's like now you're kind of like building. The more you change things, the more you're building upon shaky ground. So it's like, how do you go from there? Like if you say they do somehow unweird it and somehow get to the end of Dune Messiah, and kind of get the main beats, because you can do the main beats without being too weird. But then now we get to Children of Doom, and how do you do those main beats without doing? And then you get to a point where now you just get to God Emperor Dune, and it's just like, what are we even doing here? Like, how? Like, I mean, fuck, how do you even do God Emperor Dune without being fucking weird? Like,
No,
like
how do you do God Emperor? I mean, like, I see God Emperor. Like, I could see you could do it, but I don't see how you can make it special. Because all that's special in it is all the fucking interior monologues of these characters that are talking about philosophy. And they're tying it in this nice little bow where I can digest it
yeah,
as a science fiction. Because I fucking hate philosophy. I hate all that boring bullshit, but you fucking wrap some fucking science fiction into it and you really can fucking digest. It's really good shit. Like it's deep, dense discussions on humanity, civilization.
yeah.
Like just, I
And it's
mean,
all internal monologues. But you know
man,
what the beautiful thing about God Emperor Dune though is the way they could pull it off is with God Emperor Dune, a big component of him is that he had his diaries. And like that's how they explain away God Emperor Dune, is that like these are all being told through his diaries that were found later. Because
yeah,
he essentially put all of his thoughts were transmitted to some sort of, I don't know, some tech bullshit or something, and so all of that is being transmitted. So they could easily play monologues of some sort or whatever, or narration, and then later it's revealed to you that, oh, this narration was actually later the second's fucking dictation, mental dictation from his head, that's being told to you. So that's how they could do that. But either way, I'm still very concerned about the future.
what if
But all
you
right, guys.
What if you fleshed out like a Children of Dune trilogy that's interwoven with God Emperor of Dune? You know what I'm saying? Like you do the fucking Leto ascendancy throughout a trilogy. You're gonna have to change. There's gonna have to be some, but then like you have the God Emperor of Dune shit that could be interwoven into a narrative where you got the Leto talking to his Duncan clone in thousands of years, or some sort of like that is the narration of the trilogy. I don't know that I don't know. Denny, talk to me, Denny Villeneuve.
Honestly, the more I think about it, the more I want him to stop at Messiah and then it go to some sort of animation type thing to where they have far more freedom and they can get more weird.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, because it's like I just don't see where we're at now. While I do love these, I love these movies. It's like the books get so fucking weird that it's like I just don't trust that with what we're given now that we can get to God Emperor Dune and get a product that me and you are satisfied with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Well, yeah. Well, all right. Well, at that point, I think we're almost at 2 hours now. I guess guys, let people know where they can find you at. I know Will, your new sponsor, so let them know where they can get your get this delicious rabbit eye wine. I've already cleared one bottle today.
Me
I'm
too.
I'm a little too tipsy.
No, this is the best goddamn blueberry wine in the world. Any other blueberry wine that you find is just some bullshit imitators. That's great muscadine wine thrown with a little blueberry flavoring. It's bullshit. I am a third generation blueberry farmer that grows every bit of these blueberries. I mash them. I make this wine. I bottle it. I label it. We do every bit of the work. If you're in the great state of Georgia, you can go to any liquor store and request, if they don't have it already, that they carry rabbit eye wine. It's a 100% blueberry wine available through Savannah distributors. Anywhere in Georgia can carry it. They just got to know who we are. If you don't live in Georgia, go to rabbiteyewine.com and buy my wine. I got kids to feed, and I'm a poor boy. I need some money to help me out. Other than that, fucking read Dune.
All right, buddy, where can people find you at?
It's on the screen. You can put me on. Are people calling it X yet? Or like
I still call it Twitter. X is gay.
All right, on Twitter, it's at my Arcus buddy. That's it. That's it.
All right, guys.
I don't have anything going on.
For real, like Buddy doesn't have enough followers. He is funny on Twitter. That is how he won my heart. He is this sweet, lovable father of three, just dumpling of a human being, and he is the meanest motherfucker on Twitter to anybody. I mean, he is so mean, and it brings me joy throughout the day. I check Twitter, and I check it for what Buddy is saying to these poor people that don't understand how terrible he is.
Well, all right, guys. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Bump this up in the algos. This isn't my normal stuff I do, but, do that as well. If you don't like it, I don't really give a shit. This is what I want to talk about. But if you want to support me, patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. Follow me on Twitter @TowerGangJose. And with that, we are out.